Welcome to my video. Tonight we are going to talk about the top 3 upgrades for the Stumpjumper 2021 Alloy. So let's make sure we start by saying this is total personal preference. These upgrades that you're going to want to do to the bike or not are going to depend on your personal preference, what you're trying to accomplish with the bike. For me, I started out at 35.5 from the factory on this bike. I wanted to get the weight down to something closer to around 30 pounds. So a lot of my upgrades are aimed at reducing the weight, but it's gonna depend on your personal preference and the riding conditions that you're in. So let's talk about the upgrades that I chose for my bike. Number 3, I'm gonna go in reverse order. Number 3 was the tire. So I'll give a little bit more detail on that and talk a little bit about how to do the conversion. But my number 3 upgrade was the tires on this bike. Number 2 for me was the drivetrain. So in an effort to reduce weight, the drivetrain on this bike is an easy place you can get some pretty serious weight savings. My number 1 upgrade for this bike, coming from the shop, coming from the factory, was the brakes. And so we'll talk through why I chose the brakes, what I thought about the factory brakes, and a little bit about how to do that. I'm not gonna do a full install video on these things, but I will talk just a little bit about the process if you want to jump into that. And if you want me to do a full-blown video on those things, just let me know in the comments and we'll jump into it together. So let's talk about the number 3 upgrade, the tires on this bike. So you can see here, I got the stock tire here, which is the Butcher Grid. That's a 2.3, 29, 2.3. That's a tubeless ready tire. So it's ready to convert from the factory, which I went ahead and did right away before I ordered a new tire combo. I figured I'd try them out, but it's tubeless ready, so you can pull the tube out and do the conversion. I've got a whole nother video on that you can watch. But this is the tire that I went to. This is a Maxxis Recon 29 by 2.4. So this is a little bit actual wider tire, and you can see the difference in the tread on these. For my riding conditions, this is just a massive amount of tread. I got into the mud a couple times and it really just sucked the mud up. Really poor clearance on mud. So if you're in an area where you're riding in the mud a lot, probably not going to be a great tire for you. This, for me, a lot less rolling resistance on this tire than what the factory had. And what I will tell you is, after doing the conversion to the new tire combo, Maxxis tire combo that I'm running, I got 0.71 pounds of weight reduction just from doing a different tire combination, and it feels like a totally different bike. What I will say on this tire is it had crazy good grip. So if you're somewhere where you're doing a lot of downhill and you've got nice Hero dirt that's not too sticky, that's gonna get caught all in it, and you're not worried about doing a bunch of climbing and not trying to get the weight of your bike down too much, this is maybe a good tire for you. For me, I was after less rolling resistance, a little faster rolling tire, something that would clear mud a little bit better. Here in Texas, we've got hard packed single track, but when it rains, it gets muddy really quickly. And if you get a little bit of moisture on the trails, this makes it really hard to clear the mud. I like something like this a little bit better. But let's take a quick look at the back tire. All right, so here is our rear factory tire. Again, here's the factory, here's my upgrade. We went from a Purgatory, again, 2.3 on the back. This is a Purgatory Specialized, to an Icon 29 2.35. But again, this stock tire just has a massive amount of tread on it, if you can see that. So again, I went for a little more fast rolling, faster tire, a little less tread on that, which works well for me. Again, 0.7 pounds of weight reduction on this. I did the tubeless conversion on the factory tires just to try them out. Rode them for a while without the tubes in them. So comparison of that tire with the tubeless setup and this tire combination with the tubeless setup, 0.75 pounds of weight reduction, a lot faster rolling, a lot less tread on the tire, which is perfect for me in my riding conditions. So really happy with this tire upgrade. Let's talk about the number 2 upgrade, which is going to be the drivetrain on this bike. So for me, I was trying to get the weight down, so I went to the SRAM Dub bottom bracket setup, and I focused on the front of the drivetrain. This comes with a SRAM drivetrain on it. You can get rid of a bunch of the weight by doing the bottom bracket conversion to Dub. If you want to go the Shimano route, you can do that, but you also have to update the rear cassette. So Ricardo Martins, friend of the channel, has told me that he got in contact with Specialized, and if you want to go upgrade your cassette on the back beyond what comes on it to something that's a higher grade, GX, NX, if you're SRAM, and then something else if you wanted to go the Shimano route, you're gonna have to update the rear hub. But if you wanna update the front drivetrain with an upgraded SRAM and move to the Dub, you can go ahead and do that with your rear setup. It's already got a SRAM cassette on the rear, and that is compatible with whatever you want to do SRAM wise in the front, which is one of the things I love about the SRAM drivetrain is you can mix and match GX, NX, SX. It's all compatible. The only thing that you have to make sure of is that you've got a hub that is compatible, a free hub that's compatible with the cassette that you want to put on there. So if you want to swap out to Shimano, you're going to have to get the Shimano free hub, and then if you want to go above the factory graded install, which is probably like whatever's below SX or below for the cassette, you'll have to get an XD hub, which will allow you to jump up to the NX GX cassettes on that. But you can do, like I said, I'll walk you around the bike in a second, but you can do the GX front setup or NX front setup. Bottom bracket, you can change that to a Dub, and it'll be compatible with the rear cassette that comes on from the factory. So let's take a look at that. All right, so quick walk around on this drivetrain. I went to the Dub bottom bracket in the front with a GX crank. It's a 170, just like the stock was. You got a 165, a 170, or a 175, depending on your height. Again, I'm like 5'9", so I'm good on the 170. I went to the oval. I took off the front sprocket that came on this set and put on a absolute black oval, which is pretty cool. I like the oval. I talked about the paint on the bike in my full review, which you can check out, but got a few chips on this thing already. I think that's from the chain sucking in right there. From what you guys have told me. So I think that's what chipped that versus a rock. So Dub on the bottom, I showed you how to pull out the crankset to do that install. It's easy. You guys can do it. You can totally do that install if you want. You're just going to make sure you get the right size. It's the 65 to 73 threaded BSA Dub bottom bracket for that. And then moving on to the back here, I've got the stock derailleur. I think that's probably going to have to get upgraded. A lot of you guys have told me this is like snapped off, or that you can't get it to shift right, and that you just aren't having good luck with it. I know I've banged it around a little bit already, and it's kind of hard to get it back where I want it. I've struggled a little bit to get it adjusted and fine-tuned, but that's probably a future upgrade to go from this SX to a GX. The thing I love about the SRAM drivetrain is that you can mix and match. If you wanted to do a GX front crankset with an NX derailleur, you could do that. If you guys are gonna run Shimano on this, you'll have to update the free hub to the micro spline on this, but you can do that without replacing the whole wheel. So that's a pretty easy upgrade from what I understand. And so I left the stock cassette, stock rederailleur with an upgraded Dub bottom bracket and GX crankset. All in all, that saved me about £1 ditching the stock bottom bracket and crankset. So I was pretty happy with that upgrade. I like the way the cranks look, and it all works together really, really well. So I've got the factory drivetrain here, or bottom bracket and crankset. You can see that's a SRAM SX. And what I'll tell you about this is, you can see I've got it on the scale. I think you can probably see that on the video. It's like 2 pounds, 4.6 ounces. What I'll tell you is the Dub bottom bracket and crankset that I put on there, GX, and then you want the BSA threaded Dub bottom bracket, 73, I think it's 65 to 73 mil. I'll link to that in the description, all the parts you need to do the conversion, but this is sitting at 2 pounds, 4.6 ounces. The SRAM Dub system is sitting at 1.5. So I'm on the 170. This factory is a 170. So I went from 170 linked crank arm to 170. So you might choose to go to a 175 or a 165, depending on your height. I'm 5'9", so I like the 170. That's what the factory comes with. So it's a good comparison on the weight. But basically, a pound of weight savings. What I'll tell you is this power spline is just super heavy. This thing is super solid, super heavy. It's made by SRAM, but it's an easy place you can really shave some weight. And I really like the Dub bottom bracket system. Some of you guys also have asked about getting off this factory crank. I did want to share, this is a simple tool. You can get it on Amazon, super cheap. But basically what you do is you use the Allen wrench and you back this bolt out, and then you screw this bolt here in, and then screw this into that. And basically what it does is it pushes the crankset off of the bottom bracket. So super easy to do if you have the right tool. But again, I'll link to this in the description so you can pick one of these up if you don't have it. But just put this in here, you break that, you put this in. You gotta kind of crank on this because it's probably in there pretty tight. So don't be afraid to really crank that to get it to break. And then this crank arm will just slide right off. And then you need one other tool that goes right inside the bottom bracket that also comes in the set, that just has teeth on it that unscrews that for you. But super easy to do once you have the right tool. So don't be afraid of doing that bottom bracket conversion. You can totally do it. It's an easy conversion to do. Don't be afraid of it. So let's talk about the #1 upgrade for my money and in my mind on this bike. It's got to be the brakes. So depending on what you're coming from, I was coming from a 2014 Stumpjumper competition alloy with SLX brakes that were great. Coming to the Tekturo brakes that are factory on this bike, you've got a 203 millimeter disc in the front, and then you've got a 180 in the back. But for me, the brakes were really underpowered. I was used to a lot more stopping power, and that's important to me. So I like to do a lot of charging the downhills and going really fast. So for me, it's really, I like to go fast and I like to stop fast. And so the factory brakes just weren't adequate for me. Now, if you're riding around your neighborhood, maybe doing some light kind of trail riding, they may be fine for you and you may be able to get some serious miles out of those brakes. But if you're doing some serious trail riding, or you're a pretty experienced mountain biker that's coming from a decent bike already with some higher end brakes, it's something that you're gonna wanna put the money into. So let's jump on the bike, do a quick walk around. I'll talk you through a little bit of the install and show you what brakes I went to. All right, so let's talk through the upgrade that I did and some of what you'll want to think about. So you've got a 203 rotor in the front. It comes with the spacer that you need. So if you want to upgrade your brakes, you don't need to worry about a spacer or anything. If you're going to a Shimano, you can use the spacer that's on the bike. So you're just fine there. If you took that spacer off, you could go to a 180 rotor instead of a 203 if you wanted to shed some more weight. The 203, this is the stock rotor with an XT brake. So I left the stock rotor on here and went to the XT brake. You can do that if you don't want to upgrade your rotors right away. I figure I'll run these for a while and then upgrade them when they get a little lower. The other thing I'll tell you is some people may find this strange, but I run a 4-piston brake. So this is the XT 4-piston brake for a little more stopping power, but with a 203 rotor in the front and a 4-piston, some people may think that's overkill, but I like a lot of stopping power, so that's what I went ahead and did. So here's your XT rotor or levers in the front here. And then let me talk to you a little bit about the cable routing. So you can see here, there's an entrance point right here on the front of the bike. And then for your cable routing, it's kind of neat on this bike. I don't really like the way it looks, but you've got a compartment here that you can open up and you can bring your cable down through this compartment and then you run it through, there's a plastic piece here and here that you take off, and then you can run it through right through this arm, and then you pop out right here for the rear brake. And so it's pretty easy to do. These brakes will come with a little rubber nipple that you put on the end of the cable so you can pull the new cable through, which makes it kind of easy. So I've got a 2-piston or 2-pot for you guys across the pond in the rear, and then a 4-piston here in the front. I really like the Shimano XT, but really I think all you need is SLX. Those are really, really solid brakes. If you didn't want to go to a 4-pot, 4-piston in the front, you could certainly save a little bit of weight if you didn't do that. And if you really wanted to go after the weight, you could take this down to a 180 and do a 2-piston, which depending on your riding conditions, you just take this spacer out if you want to do that to account for the little bit smaller rotor, and you could shave some more weight. But that was a place I was willing to absorb a little bit of the weight difference. So, and then in the back here, you've got a 180, and again, I'm running the stock Tekturo rotors with my Shimano Deore XT brakes, and it works just fine. There you have it. That's our top 3 upgrades for the 2021 Stumpjumper Alloy. Those are the ones that are the best investment for me based on trying to get the weight down and my preferences and the riding conditions here in Texas. I would love to hear about what upgrades you guys have planned. And if you would do things in any different order, drop those in the comments. If you have questions about any of the installs or anything that I did on these top 3 upgrades, please shout. I'll cover those if I can in a future video. And let me know where you're going with your bike. I'm not done yet. Lots of upgrades to do, so more to come. Thanks for watching.